Okay, this is going to be a little bit of a quick video. I'm just fresh out of university and I'm going to have to get used to some new gear and a new editor because my Adobe license is about to expire. So just to get the ball rolling on content again, I'm just going to sit here and talk about Drag and Drive. I'm recording this as the global jam concludes, so I've already gotten my first taste of it. So here's what I think. Like a lot of other people, I heard this game from the Switch 2 Direct, but it wasn't without its healthy share of skepticism. It didn't look the flashiest, and it overall gave the vibes of a glorified tech demo with its definitely Switch 2 control scheme. I, for one, thought it looked interesting for a spin on the often overlooked wheelchair basketball. To my knowledge, there hasn't really been any video game depicting Paralympic sports at all, so already it piqued my curiosity. Not just for reasons of representation and inclusivity, but also because it presents some unique gameplay opportunities for converting the sport into a video game away from the traditional arcade-style sports control scheme. So, how does it stack up against those? Thankfully, just this past weekend we got a taste of this game through the Global Jam, so I caught the last session of it, and here are my impressions so far. Presentation-wise, it's not the greatest thing Nintendo's ever done, but it certainly conveys an underlying theme well enough. The art style gives off a cyberpunk vibe with its dark and edgy visuals, which, for a casual Nintendo game, is certainly a departure from their usual bright and colorful theme. The characters aren't the most memorable things in the world, and they really aren't gonna win any fans. There are customizations, but they're pretty limited, at least in this demo form. There are two alternate wheelchairs with wildly different attributes and aesthetic adjustments. These didn't really impress me either, and I think the alternate textures aren't very good, and they were kind of distracting with how bad the shaders are up close. On a different note, what did strike me is that the environment and the setup depicts a kind of street game vibe, which I never really associated with wheelchair basketball, more so standing. Games are played 3-on-3, and the court is both really small and played on a half plate, which we'll come back to in a moment. It's unusual, but I grew used to the aesthetic over time. Now if you're somehow not aware, this game uses the Switch 2 Joy-Con's mouse mode to play. Immediately upon startup, the game shows this Joy-Con 2 strap warning, which not only do these not suck anymore, but I would probably recommend using. These provide extra stability to the controller, but they also have bigger skates on them which allow the controllers to glide a lot more easily across the table. The controls then work like this. Slide the controllers forward and backwards to control the wheels. Press the ZL and ZR buttons to apply the brakes to their respective side, press L and R to pass the ball, lift the controller and flick to shoot. A lot of people thought that the controls would be super tiring just from the wheelchair motion, but it really isn't. You only need to slide a short distance forward to get moving, and the court is so small anyway that you can get to each side in just a few flicks. Now, of course, your mileage may vary, particularly with longer sessions and your table height, but that's just my experience. I suppose you could just play this with your arms to the side like a real wheelchair if your seat is wide enough. I tried it on my chair and it didn't quite work out, but couch users might have more success. Now usually for a Nintendo game the controls are pretty simple to get used to, but I found in this particular instance that it took a little longer than that. Case in point, it's possible to lock up one wheel to pivot, but a lot of the times I'd hold the button and accidentally move the exact same wheel. When done correctly though, it really helps to make sharper movements to quickly regain possession of the ball. I also found that there might be some form of aim assist or funneling with the ball when attempting a shot, which is sometimes really obvious, like being able to cheese 2 points on even a slightly mediocre layup. Overall though, the controls were responsive enough. Sometimes there are hiccups which can be really frustrating given the pacing of the matches, but other than that, they work. And then there's the rest of the mechanics. Now, Nintendo took some liberties to try and spice up the gameplay so it isn't just another motion control sports game. You can steal the ball by colliding with your opponent head-on, which is normally a personal foul. The characters don't ever dribble the ball, which would constitute multiple traveling violations, but you know, anything to keep the game flowing. The shot clock is also reduced to 14 seconds as opposed to the standard 24, but what you might also notice in the scoreboard is that there's a decimal place in the scores. That's because you can get bonuses for trick shots. I never fully mastered these myself because the timing and positioning can be pretty strict, but what is important is realizing how the game maps the controls to your hands. If you recall, I said ZL and ZR is brake, but you can actually consider it as the button to grip the wheel because of a stunt called the bunny hop, where you temporarily lift your wheelchair off the ground. Done during a shot, you can get a 0.1 bonus. Also recall the half pipe. That's because unlike real wheelchair basketball, there's dunking. This one's probably the easiest, just launch off the half pipe close to the net and shoot your score for 2.1 points. But shoot your shot with enough airtime and you'll get a super bonus worth an extra 0.1 points, making for 2.2 points in all.
I'm actually gonna correct myself here for a moment. What I just described to you is a shot from a half pipe left, which is worth 0.1. The dunk requires slightly different movement, but nets you 0.2 points if you execute it correctly. Anyway.
This can actually be a bit of a strategic move since the matches don't last for very long, so you want to do anything to gain even a slight advantage over your opponents. You might just be able to pull off a victory by a margin of 0.1, which is admittedly rare, but this has happened at least once in my playthrough. I personally found it more entertaining though to just try and go for stun advantages, mainly by attempting dunks. I was never able to b-hop or get 3-pointers, but some of my colleagues and opponents clearly mastered those better than I ever could. And that's really about it for the main gameplay. There isn't a ton of depth to this game. There are mini-games, but either they were inaccessible or I just forgot to try them. From what I did experience though, it was fun. I liked the controls and I liked the pacing of the game. I'm going to speculate here and say that I think a lot of the skepticism for this game might have stemmed from people not knowing what the price was going to be. I think people went in under the assumption that it was going to be a full price game, and given how expensive Switch 2 games are, those people wouldn't be entirely unreasonable. But this game is only coming out at $20 US or 30 Canadian, so you can lower your expectations. It's fine. It's not Game of the Year material, but at this price point, it's in the realm of games that you pick up for silly fun, and there's nothing wrong with that. As for whether I'd buy it, I probably would just for the fun of it. I've paid for games way more expensive in my library that are a lot less polished, so this is probably the least offensive buy in my opinion. It's not a must-have game, and how long it lasts remains to be seen, but for now, the concept's interesting, and I think it seems to have worked out in the end. Anyway, that's all for this quick video. Thanks for sticking around. I know it's been a while since I've done one of these, but hopefully I'll have some more for you soon. But for now, signing off.